In the labyrinthine corridors of the human psyche, we often discover that the most beautiful flowers can harbor the deadliest poison. Tonight, we descend into one such garden of deception where love was weaponized, trust became a blade, and a young nurse's smile concealed the coldest of hearts. Welcome back to Mind's Abyss. I'm your guide to the shadows that lurk within us all. Today, we travel to Valencia, Spain, to uncover a tale so chilling, so methodically crafted, that would make even the most seasoned criminologists question everything they thought they knew about manipulation and murder. This is the story of Maria Jesus Moreno Canto, known to her friends as Mage, a woman who orchestrated the most intimate form of murder, convincing another to kill for love. But before we dive into this abyss together, ask yourself this question: how well do you really know the person sleeping next to you? August 16th, 2017. The morning sun casts long shadows across the Patriarch's neighborhood in Valencia. In apartment building number 18 on Calamoca Street, Antonio Navarro Certain was preparing for what would be his final day on Earth. Antonio, 36, was an industrial engineer with a trusting heart. Married less than a year to his 27-year-old wife, Mage, a nurse who seemed to be everything a fairy tale promised: beautiful, charming, dedicated to healing others. Both from the small town of Novelda, they appeared to be the perfect match. But perfection is often the most carefully constructed illusion. While Antonio lived in the daylight of their relationship, Mage had been dwelling in shadows he never imagined existed. She was living multiple lives simultaneously, maintaining several relationships with the precision of a master manipulator. Each relationship served a different purpose in her grand design. One of those relationships was with Salvador Rodrigo Lapiedra, a 47-year-old hospital orderly who worked alongside her. Married with a daughter, Salvador had fallen completely under Mage's spell. And here's where we see the true artistry of manipulation. Mage didn't just seduce Salvador's body. She conquered his mind. She fed him a carefully crafted narrative. Antonio, she claimed, was abusive. She was trapped, suffering in silence. She painted herself as a victim in need of rescue, and Salvador believed every word. He felt chosen, special. He alone could save this beautiful woman from her torment. The intercepted messages would later reveal her true feelings. After Antonio's death, Mage would write, "Finally, my real life begins." Not the words of a grieving widow, but the triumphant declaration of someone whose plan had succeeded. What happened that August morning wasn't a crime of passion. It was an execution, planned with surgical precision. Mage had provided Salvador with everything he needed. Antonio scheduled his routines, the keys to their garage. She knew exactly when her husband would descend to the parking area, alone and unsuspecting. Salvador waited, hidden among the parked cars, gripping a kitchen knife he had purchased beforehand. In his mind, he wasn't about to commit murder. He was about to rescue the woman he loved. Antonio descended the stairs, keys jingling, mind probably on the day ahead. The attack was swift. Multiple stab wounds to the chest. Antonio didn't even have time to defend himself. In criminal law, this is called alevosía, a crime committed with such treachery that the victim has no opportunity for defense. Meanwhile, upstairs, Mage was probably preparing for work, knowing that at any moment, her life would transform. Her husband would be dead. Her lover would be a murderer, and she would be free to claim the insurance money, the inheritance, the widow's pension. After the murder, Salvador discarded the weapon in a septic tank at his rural property. It would only be recovered months later, after his confession. They say that grief is love with nowhere to go. But what happens when there was never any love to begin with? When police arrived, they found what appeared to be a devastated young widow. Mage played her role flawlessly, the shocked, heartbroken wife who had lost everything in senseless violence. But investigators have trained eyes for human behavior, and something didn't fit. While Mage's words spoke of devastation, her demeanor told a different story. There was a calmness, calculation that seemed incongruous with genuine grief. Genuine emotion is messy, unpredictable, but Mage's grief was polished, performed. It had the appearance of sorrow without its essence. Meanwhile, she had already begun claiming Antonio's life insurance policies. While most widows struggle to think about practical matters, Mage was making phone calls, filing paperwork, securing her financial future. The investigation revealed robbery wasn't the motive. Nothing had been taken. This shifted focus to Antonio's inner circle, and investigators quickly noticed inconsistencies in Mage's behavior. But she had prepared for this too, maintaining her innocence with the same calculated precision with which she had planned the murder. This is the hallmark of psychopathic behavior, the ability to maintain a facade even when the stakes are life imprisonment. November 8th, 2017, nearly 3 months after the murder, Spanish police intercepted a phone conversation between Mage and Salvador that would change everything. By January 12th, 2018, both were in custody. But even then, Salvador tried to protect her, claiming in his initial confession that he had acted alone, driven by unrequited obsession. This is where we see the depth of Mage's manipulation. Even behind bars, facing murder charges, Salvador still believed he was protecting the woman he loved. But Mage's true nature couldn't remain hidden. While Salvador languished in Picassent prison, believing he was a noble sacrifice for love, Mage was already pursuing her next conquest, another inmate at the same facility. When Salvador discovered this betrayal, something shattered inside him. The spell was finally broken. In devastating clarity, Salvador realized he had been nothing more than a weapon in Mage's hands, a tool to be used and discarded. His subsequent confession revealed the full scope of her manipulation, the false claims of abuse, the promises of a future together, the detailed information she provided for the murder. Most damning of all, he revealed her true motivation, not escape from abuse, but financial gain from Antonio's death. October 30th, 2020, after years of investigation and legal proceedings, both stood before a Spanish court to hear their fate. The jury found both guilty of murder. Mage received 22 years as the intellectual author, the mastermind who orchestrated every detail. Salvador received 17 years as a material author, with a reduced sentence for his eventual cooperation. Both were ordered to pay 250,000 euros to Antonio's family, a sum that could never truly compensate for a life lost. But even in prison, Mage's story didn't end. In a twist that seems too bizarre for fiction, she began a relationship with another inmate, David M., a man serving time for homicide. This resulted in pregnancy, and in July 2023, she gave birth to a son. Spanish law allows her to keep the child in a special mother's unit until he turns 3. So in Fontcalin prison, the woman who orchestrated her husband's murder is now raising a child. David has since been released, and reports suggest their relationship has ended, leaving Mage once again alone, albeit behind bars. As we emerge from this corner of the abyss, what truths can we extract from the darkness? The case of Mage forces us to confront uncomfortable realities about the nature of evil. This wasn't a crime of passion or desperation. It was a methodical execution of a plan by someone who valued money and freedom over human life. Criminologist Paz Velasco identified clear psychopathic traits in Mage: the ability to seduce and manipulate, the calculation behind every action, the complete lack of empathy or remorse. Perhaps the most chilling aspect isn't the murder itself, but the realization that Mage continues to form relationships, continues to manipulate, as if taking Antonio's life was merely an inconvenience. The Black Widow Patrix remains in her web, and we are left to wonder, how many others walk among us, wearing masks of normalcy while harboring such darkness within? Until next time, remember, the abyss is closer than you think.